Sean Combs led and participated in a racketeering conspiracy.
How are you guys feeling? How'd it go today? Step to the side, please.
Approximately how many bottles of baby oil would be used in a typical freak-off?
A lot. I would say definitely somewhere close to 10.
He would punch her, choke her, drag her, slap her in the mouth. I saw him kick her, punch her in the stomach.
Sean wanted Scott's friends to be there to see the car get blown up in the driveway.
Closing in on Sean Diddy Combs. Closing arguments expected tomorrow in his sex trafficking trial. Has the government done enough? Plus, the Idaho student murders Bryan Kohberger set to go on trial in August. This morning, new developments on the potential witness list. And also this hour, the matriarch mastermind, Donna Adelson, still waiting a ruling on a change of venue. Will that help her upcoming trial? And testimony resumes this morning in the case against Lido Valley. Young witnesses seem to have some selective memory from a teenage party stabbing. It's all next, right here on Opening Statements. Hey, welcome to Opening Statements. I'm Ted Rollins in for Julie Grant on this Wednesday, a very busy Wednesday ahead here at Court TV. A lot of focus, of course, in New York. Attorneys will be hashing out those jury instructions today in the Diddy case. The jury could have this case as early as Friday. Julie is actually heading up to Manhattan. She'll be anchoring the show from there and be there for the highly anticipated closing arguments, which we do expect to take place tomorrow. We'll also be heading to Connecticut later this morning. Also got a big couple cases in Florida. Busy Wednesday, as always. Let's start with the Daily Docket.
Just kind of lifted up my shirt and looked, and I was like, holy like I was stabbed. I heard the bubbles come from out of my chest, and I just immediately thought the worst.
All right, these are the cases that we're looking at today. That's the one in Connecticut there. One of the surviving stabbing victims in the Preppy party murder trial expected to return to the stand. That begins 10 o'clock Eastern time. We'll be dipping into that throughout the day. In Florida, the state's case continues at 9 o'clock in the missing boyfriend murder trial. The defendant there, Christopher Davis. He's accused of killing his boyfriend, Barry, back in 2023. His body's never been found. So it's a no-body prosecution. We'll be watching that one. Also in Florida, OnlyFans model Courtney Clenny. Remember her? She has a hearing at 9:30 as well. We'll monitor that. But let's begin with our top story in New York City. Closing arguments expected on Thursday in Sean Diddy Combs' sex trafficking trial. Not before the charge conference today, a very important day today. There's the lawyers hash out what the jury will be instructed on before they get the case. Court TV legal correspondent Kelly Craft outside the courthouse with the latest. Kelly, good morning to you.
Good morning to you, Ted. The jury is off today. Charge conference is going to begin in a few hours. Closing arguments then tomorrow. During an exchange with the judge on Tuesday, when the judge was discussing whether or not Sean Combs was going to testify, Sean Combs said he was not, placed his hands on defense counsel tables, looked over at his defense counsel, and actually leaned into the judge, saying he made this decision with his lawyers. He said that he discussed this decision thoroughly with his lawyers, and he emphasized thoroughly. He also told the judge he was feeling great and that the judge was doing an excellent job. The defense case only lasted a short time. Counsel reading texts and email communications into the record, including messages from Cassie Ventura to Sean Combs, in which Cassie tells Sean she's the luckiest woman in the world. And she said, I love being in love with you. You take care of me. I will not let you down. Some government exhibits have also been released to the media, including photos and videos from the woman who went by the pseudonym Jane. We saw shots of lingerie, also those hotel room nights, some rooms that had been set up, some images were on her phone. Also, we saw a video of Sean Combs dancing. Throughout this case, we have seen Sean Combs' family attending the trial, his mother Janice Combs leaving the courthouse Tuesday. And Ted, that charge conference begins at noon Eastern. That's the latest from here in Lower Manhattan. Kelly Craft will send it back to you.
Our thanks to Kelly. Kelly will be with us throughout the day here on Court TV as we prepare for tomorrow's big closings. Let's talk about it. Here to discuss, entertainment reporter, our favorite, Kinsey Schofield, up early in L.A., criminal defense attorney, former prosecutor Franz Boricart in Louisiana, and former U.S. Attorney William in Ihlenfeld. Good morning, all of you. Kinsey, to you first. This case, it's now to the point where it's going to start ramping up again. Yes, there was the big news when Sean went down. People were shocked. Those that knew him, you actually worked with him for a while. Set it up for us. No matter what happens here, is his career over, or we've seen other people rebound, Chris Brown, others that have been accused of horrible things. Take us through his life, assuming he somehow gets out of this.
Assuming he somehow gets out of this, I think he has to disappear for a significant amount of time. Chris Brown is a great example. Chris Brown went away for a while. Now, I do think that people bring up what happened with Rihanna pretty regularly, but he has managed to maintain a singing career, a touring career, and continues actually to get into trouble. He was recently in trouble in London. But when it comes to Diddy, I think he needs to go away for a little while. I think he'd do one of those big sit-downs with, one of the major networks, Anderson Cooper, something like that, surrounded by his family to try to talk about this. Inevitably, I do think Diddy could get back to work, specifically behind the scenes, but he's never going to be the character that everybody loved, the fun time guy that he was before. We're always going to wonder if something sinister is going on behind the scenes.
Yeah, I don't know how many people are going to go to his white parties moving forward. William, did the government get over the hump in this case? There is, he's not accused of dragging Cassie in the elevator, Banks. We all saw that. He's guilty as the day is long for that. But is he a racketeer? And did the government prove their case?
The government did prove its case. This is a 5-count superseding indictment, the top count being the RICO count, and then there's 2 counts of sex trafficking and 2 counts of interstate prostitution. They've checked all the boxes. I believe that the jury has everything that it needs to convict on all the counts. The victim testimony is the most important. So you had very powerful testimony from Cassie Ventura, and then you had the testimony from Jane. And if you just had those 2 witnesses and nothing else, the government might have some trouble. But you had all of this corroboration. You have financial records. You have hotel receipts. You have text messages. There's so much to corroborate what they said. And then, of course, they have to prove that there was an enterprise and that this was a conspiracy to basically allow the sex trafficking to occur. And I believe they've established that as well with the assistance of all of the employees. There's been a lot of talk about KK, his chief of staff or top personal assistant, and her involvement. She was involved. Maybe she didn't want to see this happen, but she certainly was involved, as were many other employees. So, and they've also proven many, if not all, of the predicate acts within that RICO count. They might struggle with the arson or kidnapping predicate acts, but they've certainly proven sex trafficking, interstate prostitution, drug trafficking, bribery, obstruction of justice. So they've proven enough of the predicate acts. You only have to prove 2. They've proven more than that. And then I would say the interstate prostitution is a slam dunk. And I don't use that term often, but I think that's a slam dunk. Those are 10-year counts. Sex trafficking are 15-year mandatory minimums. So I don't know, to go back to your last topic of conversation, that he's going to have a chance to be involved in music production or anything else anymore, because I think he's going to serve the rest of his life in prison.
Franz, are you surprised the defense didn't call any witnesses, not necessarily Sean Combs, but any other witnesses in their case? They just relied on the cross-examination, the openings and the closings, which they've been effective. I mean, it's very clear for this jury what their strategy is, and that is these were willing participants. It's not trafficking, they're willing participants. Your thoughts?
Well, so on the one hand, it's always great to present a defense when you can present a defense. And there was a defense to present in this case. And I think, like you said, Ted, I think that they would say, hey, we presented a great defense in our cross-examinations, so we don't need to put anybody on. I think it was absolutely the right decision not to have Sean Combs testify. I think that would have been a disaster. I think it would have gone really poorly for them, and I'm really pleased that that didn't happen from a defense tactical standpoint. But honestly, I don't disagree that the federal government proved its case. I do think that there's meat on the bone, though, to argue for reasonable doubt. I think a lot of the reasonable doubt arguments are going to come in the form of these actions were either consensual or weren't what the government is trying to make you think they were. You know, so it's going to be an interesting closing.
Yeah. Kinsey, his family has supported him throughout, been in the, courtroom at times, not the entire time, but most days there's been support there. He's got a huge legal team. What about, it seems as though everybody else, though, has scattered. You don't have any celebrities.
Ted, don't forget Kanye. Kanye,
you're right. We had one.
Shows up for one day, is put in one of the overcrowd rooms, not the official overcrowd room, but a second overcrowd room. I imagine that he was so livid that he wasn't getting the attention he wanted or wasn't able to actually engage with Diddy the way that he wanted to, which I think it was all for headlines and left about half an hour after that. But what you're talking about is a typical Hollywood strategy. Agents, publicists, managers, they do try to rally celebrities around their client because, as you were saying earlier, Hugh Grant, Martha Stewart, O.J. Simpson, these are all people that got in trouble with the law and quickly went back to work because they did manage to rally the right Hollywood support around them after they were done, or after the chaos was over. And Diddy just does not have those types of individuals that are standing up for him right now.
William, do you read anything into the fact that the judge did not rule from the bench on the judgment for acquittal motion from the defense? He's holding it back.
I don't think there's any possibility at all that the judge is going to grant that motion. The standard under Rule 29 is that the court must look at the evidence in the light most favorable to the government. So it's a very, very rare and very difficult for the defense to win on that motion. And judges and federal judges typically will reserve ruling on something like that until later. So I don't think there's any concern at all that the government might lose that motion. This case is going to the jury. The judge is going to let this jury make a decision. We're going to have really long closing arguments. When I heard that each side was going to take 4 hours, I just kind of shook my head like I am now. I just think that's way too long. But I do think that I do think that the judge is going to deny that motion. The jury is going to make the decision in this case.
All right, Kins, thank you for getting up. You two are going to stick around. Coming up next on Opening Statements. Oh, you heard this one. A DoorDash driver says, hey, I'm a witness in the Bryan Kohberger trial. We're going to talk about the proposed witnesses and what's taking place right now, the back and forth. Plus, Donna Adelson, her upcoming trial, fast approaching. She wants a change of venue. Will it be approved? We'll break that down coming up.
Brutal murders of 4 University of Idaho students.
Oh my God, this doesn't happen here.
Detectives arrested 28-year-old Bryan Kohberger.
You could tell there was some off about him.
He was stalking them. He was hunting them.
Forget about motive. We don't even have a connection.
This trial will be on Court TV.
And I pray that we have justice.
The Idaho College Student Murders Trial. Live coverage begins this August, only on Court TV.
Become debt-free.
Detectives arrested 28-year-old Bryan Christopher Kohberger on a warrant for murders of Ethan, Zana, Madison, and Kaylee.
He was stalking them. He was hunting them.
You could tell there was some off about him.
A quadruple homicide in Moscow, Idaho. It's just unheard of.
This is our home. This is our university. This is our community.
These murders have shaken our community, and no arrest will ever bring back these young students.
This was a violation of everything.
We are just about 2 months away from the start of Bryan Kohberger's quadruple murder trial, and as the countdown continues, new court documents are revealing a growing witness list. A total of 7 people are now set to appear in court in the coming weeks in Pennsylvania to determine whether they could, should, have to testify during the trial. That group includes a jail guard from the facility that Kohberger was held in before he was extradited to Idaho. Last week we heard about this little DoorDash driver body cam as a potential witness. She delivered food to one of the victims on the night of the murder, said she saw Kohberger at the crime scene. She'll be a big witness. She was arrested for a DUI, and you know, some people say, well, I know the sheriff. She says, I'm a witness in Kohberger's case. Take a listen.
Bryan?
Yep, I killed all the girls over in Moscow.
And now we have to testify. We're in the case here, so yeah, because I'm the DoorDash driver, so yeah.
You have to testify in which murder?
Murder case for the college girl.
Oh.
All right, so we're asking, that to me is just off the wall, but we know about her now because she wasn't in the initial affidavit, probable cause affidavit, but she'll be testifying. How are the new witnesses going to affect Kohberger's trial? Let's talk about it here to discuss. Criminal defense attorney, former prosecutor Franz Borchardt still with us, and a criminologist and professor at St. Thomas University, Dr. Debbie Goodman here. I want to start with this DoorDash driver. So we didn't know about her until this DUI arrest, and then the body camera comes out and she blurts it out. Obviously, people blurt stuff out in that situation. But how important is she if she can identify Kohberger? Because right now we were under the impression it was just this bushy eyebrow description from a roommate. If you've got a more succinct description, that's huge, is it not?
Yes. Would you like me to respond?
Yes, Debbie, sorry.
Oh, thank you so much. Good morning. And how huge is it? I think it's colossal, Ted. I really do. You know, at the moment, you mentioned Dylan, and I don't regard her necessarily as an eyewitness who could directly point out in court and say, that's the guy I saw, Bryan Kohberger. She should not be pressured to do that. What she will say, as you mentioned, is the description of the bushy eyebrows and the face covering. Now we move to the 44-year-old DoorDash driver going by the initials MM. I think it's huge, Ted, for 2 reasons. One of which is she could literally be the eyewitness on this case. If we have an individual who can say that they saw Bryan Kohberger at the time and place of these savage slaughters, and if she could say she saw his car, I think that's very significant. And the second issue is it would give us a really succinct and specific time frame of when these murders took place. At the moment, we think the delivery of the food was at or near 4 a.m., but investigators think that the actual murders took place within the time frame of 4:07 and 4:21, so that 13 to 14 minute window of time can be solidified. So I am truly looking forward to hearing about what this woman saw and what she has to say.
Franz, we found out about this woman because of the DUI. Are you expecting we're going to find out a lot more about the state's case once it begins? I mean, that probable cause affidavit was lengthy. You're thinking, oh, this is what they have, and they have a lot in there. But safe to say, there's maybe more that we have no idea about that the state's going to deliver during their case.
So the probable cause affidavit for the viewers doesn't normally include the kitchen sink. However, in a case of this nature, you generally publicly lead with your best evidence, right? Hey, there was this DNA sheaf knife sheath found at the scene, and there was a description that kind of fits him. So yeah, I do think that we're going to see some more witnesses and some more evidence, but I think we have, honestly, Ted, I think we have the best evidence is known evidence. Everything else is just going to reinforce that evidence. So, for example, the DoorDash witness, who didn't do the state any favors by getting a DWI, by the way, and by mouthing off about Bryan, that's her words, first name. That witness isn't going to make or break the case, but that witness kind of reinforces the DNA, which is being challenged right now. So it's kind of like it's a net effect, a totality of circumstances. But I don't know that we're going to have a lot of surprises. Now, if we get to a death penalty phase, that might be some surprises, because if they convict him, then there's a penalty phase, and then that's when mitigation evidence and also aggravators come out. And that may be a lot of information that has nothing to do with the murder itself, but may have to do with why we either do or don't want to put him to death.
Yeah, and to that end, there is a witness list that has come up out of the state of Pennsylvania, where these individuals are being told that they should be prepared to come to Idaho. They're going to hash that out to figure out who exactly is coming, who isn't. And on the list, we've got like an advisor at the high school. That's Ann Parham. Correction officers, where Kohberger was held initially there when he was taken into custody. And then, a former professor, Marie Bolger, Jesse Harris, a former boxing coach. People that are setting up, Dr. Debbie Goodman, that eventual penalty phase, I would think, because they're talking about his character. On some level, him being portrayed as normal by these people. Oh, he was a great student. He was a great boxing participant. He was just a wonderful guy. That's scarier than he had a tough upbringing and a criminal record is on some levels. And if I'm on that jury and a member of that community, I don't know that works for him.
Right, Ted. Very good points. But I think we would anticipate, without any real surprise or shock, that there will be individuals with whom this defendant interacted along the way who may have favorable things to say about him, just like people may have said favorable things somewhere along the way about a Ted Bundy, Dennis Rader, Jeffrey Dahmer. So I don't think that will come as a surprise, nor do I think whatever these individuals have to say about Bryan Kohberger, that is truly in the past. So we understand cases. We understand how they're organized, past, present, future. So we'll hear from them about the past. But more importantly, I believe, is the present. What did he do? And all the evidence that the prosecution has. And then, of course, moving forward, if he is indeed the killer of our 4 victims, then what will the penalty be?
Franz, for people that may have written this off like, oh, he's going down, they got the knife sheath, they have the DNA. He has a very legitimate team of defense attorneys, partly because this is a death penalty case. So the state is forced to defend him vigorously. And this could, this is not going to be a lay down and die scenario from this defense team, is it not?
So no, I expect a very thorough and aggressive defense. Capital lawyers generally are a top tier qualified attorneys. But now the other side of this, Ted, is capital defense attorneys, their sole job in that arena is to do what? To keep their client alive. And so sometimes while he is maintaining factual innocence, sometimes that means yielding to factual innocence, because it's hard to pivot. If you've been saying all trial long, I didn't do it, I didn't do it, I didn't do it, and then you're convicted, and then you're going to turn around and ask a jury for a reason not to put you to death, it's hard to make that pivot, right? It's hard to say, I'm innocent, but these are the reasons you shouldn't put me to death. Because you're not taking accountability. You're not accepting any kind of responsibility for your actions. So it's a very delicate tightrope walking. But that said, I would expect an aggressive defense. And for example, that DoorDash witness is maybe the best witness the state has besides the DNA, but she just shot a giant hole in the defense's case with that DWI commentary, which has nothing to do with her witnessing, but has something now to do with the case.
Absolutely. And you're right. The goal, you could tell it in the pretrial motions, that the goal is to keep him alive. They have used a lot of motions to try to get the death penalty off the table, even before going to trial. We'll see it all play out a couple months from now, and of course, our cameras will be there, and we'll be covering that one soon enough. Still ahead on opening statements.
This is Adelson. How you doing? Just want to give you this. Can I ask you, is someone blackmailing you?
No, it's always a possibility. I said to Harvey, I swear to God, our family was cursed.
When did they issue a warrant?
One moment, Miss Adelson. Please keep your comments to yourself.
Oh, before Kohberger, we're going to have this one. Donna Adelson. Was she the mastermind behind Dan Markel's death? We'll talk about that trial possibly being moved. Plus, testimony resumes later this morning in the case going up in Connecticut. There, we're going to take a closer look at some of the surviving victims from this high school party that turned deadly. Coming up on opening statements. Welcome back. This morning, the spotlight is on Donna Adelson and her request for a change of venue as her trial date approaches. She was in court June 13th as her attorneys asked to move the trial to Miami because of pretrial publicity. And we're still waiting for the judge's ruling on that one, even though her trial is scheduled to begin in August. Let's get you caught up before we do anything with this case. In case you're not caught up, here is Court TV's Julia Janae.
November 13th, 2023, police detained Donna Adelson, a Miami grandmother, and her dentist husband Harvey on the jetway at the Miami airport as they attempted to board an international flight.
Oh, don't do this, please.
Please.
Oh,
Someone's got to help them get home. This is terrible.
Donna was taken into custody and charged with first-degree murder and conspiracy to commit murder in the 2014 shooting death of her estranged ex-son-in-law, Dan Markel.
Can I call my attorney?
You can.
Where am I
going? Florida State law professor Dan Markel and Donna Adelson's daughter, Wendy, were embroiled in a bitter custody battle when he was killed. They lived in Tallahassee and both worked at the law school. But Wendy Adelson wanted to take their young sons and move hundreds of miles away to Miami to be closer to her mother, Donna. Dan Markel would not agree to this.
Mom, I need you to sit down. I am fine. The boys are fine. I need you to sit down. Danny has been shot. And I don't think he's going to make it.
Since Dan Markel's death, 2 hitmen and 2 co-conspirators, including Wendy Adelson's brother Charlie, have been convicted. Prosecutors say Markel's ex-mother-in-law, Donna, was the mastermind of the murder-for-hire plot.
Ma'am, you were arrested on a warrant from Leon County, Florida. It says attempted solicitation, conspiracy to commit a capital felony, homicide.
Donna's arrest came a week after her son Charlie was convicted and sentenced to life in prison. She and Harvey Adelson had one-way tickets to Vietnam, which does not have an extradition agreement with the U.S. They were heard discussing their plans on a jail call recording.
We've been looking it up over and over. If things change, if there is extradition from Vietnam. Because we've looked at all the places. I mean, I could go to Korea and China, but there's no extradition. But we're looking for places where there's no extradition.
How long have you been incarcerated at the Leon County Detention Facility? Do you recall?
15 and a half months, 470 days.
Donna Adelson has pleaded not guilty to all of the charges. If she's convicted, she could be sentenced to life in prison.
All right, what a case this is going to be. Here to discuss, criminologist and professor at St. Thomas University, Dr. Debbie Goodman, and former U.S. Attorney William Ihlenfeld. William, the change of venue, this is a case that has gotten a lot of publicity in Tallahassee, and moving it to Miami inherently does give you a better shot because the jury pool is so much larger. What do you think the judge is going to do here?
Yeah, what a fascinating case. I think what the judge is probably going to do, and I watched the hearing, and both sides made compelling arguments. I thought the defense attorney really laid out the law well and explained why a change of venue would be appropriate. Then I thought the prosecutor responded appropriately and in a strong fashion. And so I think ultimately, to answer your question, I think the judge is going to try to seat a jury in Leon County. And if that doesn't work, then he will order a change of venue. It's a high burden to get a trial moved from one county to another. There's a lot of expense involved, and there's a lot of logistics involved. But at the end of the day, what they're trying to do is to get a fair, impartial, unbiased jury for this defendant. The judge is going to try to do that in his home county, and if he can't, then he would make the ruling and decide and move it to another county.
Yeah, we've seen that take place in other cases, and it's always amazing how, how many people don't know about something that you think, oh, everybody knows about this, but lo and behold, a lot of times you do see a jury. Dr. Debbie Goodman, what's your take on Donna? I mean, just that body camera video is on some level priceless, where she's like, oh no, you're bringing up this murder again. I'm trying to get to Vietnam. I mean, she's so out there, and even in every hearing she's been in, she's either rolling her eyes or complaining, or she is a force. How do you think she's going to play in front of a jury?
Not well, Ted. And, it's not only Donna, but this whole case to me as a criminologist, this is called familicide. And just to remind the viewers, that's when family members kill family members. And for me, Ted, this is so reminiscent of a case the viewers would remember last year about Victoria Butler and Jillian Kelly, who were moms going to visit in a child custody circumstance. And they were killed, brutally murdered, by whom? The grandma, Tiffany Adams, and other members of the family. So it's unbelievable to me when family members who are supposed to love and support one another are orchestrating and conspiring to commit murder. But in terms of her demeanor, her decorum, it's almost like, she's throwing up her hands as if she has nothing to do with it. But thus far, I feel that her role may indeed be significant. Now, it'll be interesting to see also, as we know, sometimes the composition of the age of the defendant can also be of interest to a jury, meaning she's an older woman, she's 75. How might this composition of the jury members view her? Now, I like to remove age from the equation always and just look at what's the evidence, what's the role that the individual played. But if she did what the prosecution says she did, then I don't think the state of Florida will react leniently whatsoever, and it will be swift, severe, and certain penalty for Donna as well as the other co-defendants.
William, what do you think of the prosecution, the way it went? Get the hitmen first, Garcia and McBanois, then Charlie, and now you move up one step at a time. You've gotten to Donna.
I think they took a great approach. I think everything has played out as best as they could have hoped. And then, to go back to those phone calls, those jail calls where they captured her talking about going to a country where she can't be extradited, that just played right into the prosecution's hands. That's consciousness of guilt. That's going to be used against her at this trial and really, I think, put the nail in her coffin. So I like their approach. I like how they've gone about it. I like that they were quick to make an arrest to make sure she couldn't get out of the country. And now they've got an even better case than they did before because of the statements that she made on those jail calls.
Yeah. And then tried to save some money and bought a one-way ticket. Oh, my goodness. Just get the round trip. At least he could say we were coming back. Let's get a break. Dr. Debbie Goodman, thank you as always for your valuable time. Still ahead, we're going to turn our attention to that trial taking place up in Connecticut. Teenagers start with a fight over beer. Somebody ends up dead.
It was the worst day of my life. Plain and simple. Like,
Why was it the worst day of your life?
Never in a million years would I think being at one of my best friend's house, I would get stabbed, or 3 other of my friends would get stabbed, or Jimmy McGrath would die.
Sean Diddy Combs. We're previewing each day's proceedings in the trial that has captivated the nation. And a closer look at true crime cases across the country.
Opening statements with Julie Grant. Mornings at 8, 7 Central on Court TV.
These are the cases that captivated the world.
Couldn't keep my life straight.
They were killed by their own children. That challenged the legal system and ourselves. Court TV, legendary trials.
Now for what's tipping the scales in a teenage party gone wrong. Are the witnesses in this case fighting a little bit of forgetfulness? We've seen that play out over the last couple days. The defendant in this case, Raul Valley, is just 16 years old at the time that he's accused of killing 4 people and killing 17-year-old James McGrath. Those 3 others that were injured have been a big part of this case. They've been brought in one by one, and there's certainly been a trend throughout these folks in their testimony. They're very good on direct examination, and then on cross, they have a problem with remembering.
Then a punch was thrown by Tyler Rich, right?
Yes, sir.
And you don't recall why he threw that punch, right?
No, sir.
You didn't see Mr. Valley do anything to attack Mr. Rich, did you?
I do not recall.
You didn't see Mr. Valley do anything to attack you, did you?
I don't recall.
You didn't see Mr. Valley do anything to attack anybody at that point, did you?
I don't recall.
And you described not that he was bent over, that he was crawling on the ground, right?
He was on one knee coming towards me, as I described with
You
State's
told
attorney.
police officers that he was crawling on the ground, correct?
I do not recall.
You told police officers that they were trying to start things, and one of them said, "We have a knife on us," right?
I don't recall saying that.
You don't recall telling that to officers Kozlowski, Ianati, Muyo, and Bango on May 15th at 12:30 in the afternoon when you were at your parents' house?
No, I don't.
Okay, what does the jury think of witnesses so far? Are they believable here? Let's bring back in criminal defense attorney, former prosecutor Franz Borchardt, and former U.S. attorney William Illenfeld. Franz, this, you can see how this happened. Like the DA or somebody, one of the prosecutors said, listen, if you don't know the answer, just say you don't recall. These kids are taking it to another level, but there are so many of them, the witnesses, the victims, that I'm not sure it matters, but why I'm interested in your opinion. At the end of the day, is the jury going to not believe these young men and women about their recollection because they're being a bit cagey on cross?
I think it very much matters because they are definitely coming across as coached. So I don't think it's just that the prosecution told them, hey, if you don't know the answer, no big deal, just say you don't recall. It feels coached, right? When you have a witness answer direct examination questions, but kind of do what we're seeing here on cross, that's not about truth. It's about something else. And I don't think jurors are going to like it, especially in a self-defense case where I'm not saying it is self-defense, but this really should be about an exploration of truth. Now, the other side of this is these are a bunch of kids. This is what kids do. They get cagey. They get basically the body language of I don't want to be here because none of them want to be here, Ted. So I think this is only helping the defense, and it just comes across as pants on fire.
Yeah, Julie will be back tomorrow. William, this defense, If it were an adult, I would laugh. I'd say, oh, you really? You went back to your car and got a knife and then came back? I don't think you were scared at all. You were mad. But this is a 16-year-old kid, and he does have a friend there. They're outnumbered, and the defense has done a good job in reminding the jury with every witness that's come on. They've talked about the number of people that were around these two before he went to go get the knife. How does age, to Franz's point, play into this in terms of helping possibly the defendant?
I think it plays a big role. It certainly helps in cross-examining these witnesses who are, through their body language and through the statements and through all of the statements that they don't recall or don't remember, or they've made inconsistent statements. All of that plays into the hands of the defense. It's very defensible. And then also, you've got a young defendant, and the jury's going to consider that, and they're going to think about how they might have responded if they were that age, if they were outnumbered, if they were in that situation back when they were a teenager. So I think that age plays a huge role in this case, and I think the defense is doing a good job of capitalizing on that. And I think you'll see that kind of all come together when they do the closing arguments. The prosecution has the challenge of saying, look, we might have had some inconsistencies, but these are young people. That's what happens. And at the end of the day, we had someone who lost their life and multiple other people who were harmed. And we need to look at what we know for sure, and what we know for sure is X, Y, and Z. And so that's the challenge the prosecution faces. But this is a very defensible case.
Ryan Hines is one of the individuals that was stabbed. Here he is on the stand telling the jury what he felt at that moment.
I just kind of go at the defendant, and I punch him in the face like 2 times.
And when you did that, did the defendant engage you?
Yes, he did.
And can you tell us a little bit about how
he was stumped, when he got punched in the face, he stumbled back and just kind of fell. And then that's where I kind of got over him, and I punched him in the face, and then all of a sudden I just feel like a weird sharp pain in my side, and I just kind of went like this, and I went like this, and I looked down to this, and I see him with his fist clenched up like this.
Does Franz, Lido Valley, the defendant here, have to take the stand? Because we're hearing a lot of descriptions about this taking place from the standpoint of the victims and that friend group. Does he have to get up and say why he was so scared that he left harm's way to get to his car, grab a knife, and go back?
So in a self-defense case, it's always good to have your client be in a position where they can testify. They don't have to, but the jury wants to hear from them. But what we've seen is none of these kids are making great witnesses, right? I mean, the victim sounded good on the stand, but none of these kids are making great witnesses. And by the way, we have video footage, so I think anything that he's going to get out of his client, he can argue in closing. I think the big thing is bringing a knife to a fist fight okay and fair? Well, normally no, except when it's more than one-on-one. And I think that that's kind of what we're going to be seeing in the closing is this wasn't a straight up fair fight. It was unfair. And look, he has a right to arm himself and use a weapon if he feels like he's in harm's way. And that is going to be based on the video and based on all the witnesses and the inconsistencies, Ted. That's what I think we're going to see. But no, he doesn't have to testify.
William, do you think you should roll the dice in a case like this, put him on, or I guess, without knowledge of how he would do, which the defense has. What's your take on him, yes or no, on the stand?
I think he should take the stand. I think he should get on there and explain why he did what he did. I've never had any interaction with him, but his attorney's going to have to get a read on if he's going to come across as a sympathetic person, how he might present to the jury. If they're comfortable with that, I'd go ahead, put him on there, let him explain why he did what he did.
Franz, William, as always, thank you for your time on this Wednesday morning. Enjoy the rest of your days. We're going to switch gears. Well, actually, we're not going to switch gears. Opening statements is over, but Court TV Live is going to begin.